Hello and welcome back. Scientific researcher Donald Adams has been fully committed to the discovery and development of frequency science for the last 20 years. He began primarily interested in wave phenomenon and the characteristics of field effects. His studies were also aimed at understanding consciousness and behavior from a very different perspective. An unexpected spin-off from his research appears to be the discovery of a possible mechanism that can offset and neutralize the adverse effects of celestial bodies, which casts a huge web of frequency vibration onto our planet. He has been able to emulate the sounds that the different planetary bodies in our solar system make. The blend of discovery of the sounds of stars and the sounds of certain mind-body states is what has led to the overall development of this unique science, of which has been a leading thinker, researcher, and developer of the science of frequency healing. The process is still experimental, and Donald Adams, whose background is primarily in computer science and related fields, and who is not a qualified medical professional, has found his frequencies are yielding very dramatic, life-changing results for 3,500 plus volunteers to date that are providing feedback on its effects. This pool of volunteer recipients are reporting dramatic increases to their mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being simply from listening to these sound patterns. The frequencies developed by Donald Adams are the fruits of an extensive period of hard-won discoveries and breakthroughs and are continued to make an ongoing positive difference in people's lives. I would like to welcome Donald Adams to the show. Welcome, Donald. How are you?
Hey, pretty good. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, good. Good. Good to have you too. Yeah, it's been a while. We've been trying to interview you for a while. Our schedules have been very busy. So yeah, finally.
Well, thanks for your patience. Yeah, I think it's been pretty tight for both of us.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So, I'm just a little bit I'm curious. Tell us more about the line of work that you do and what how it works. Would you?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, uh, essentially, I made a math discovery roughly about 13 years ago now, and I've been involved with a number of areas of research, mostly on kind of like a semi-hobby basis. It was something that kind of got funded by the actual work that I did at the time, and on the basis of that discovery, over the course of a few years of sort of testing it out, it became apparent that it lent itself well to sonification. In other words, taking a set of data that described phenomena and then converting that into sound pulses. And the phenomena, or the data, was numeric information that contained descriptors of different kinds of states. Those states would include, like, emotional, mental, physical. And what was found was that when the data was converted into sound, or in other kinds of electromagnetic output, different kinds of pulses, whether it was like magnetic field fluctuations, or it could be like, say, radio frequency broadcasts, that when an organism was exposed to that output at a certain magnitude for a certain duration, that effects occurred that were very noticeable, very dramatic. And so what happened at that point was a realization that this could be used as a model or a tool, to effectively support people, and to support them in a way that doesn't really exist on the planet, to my knowledge, anywhere else. I mean,
Yeah.
certainly, I think it would be accurate to say that it's definitely a form of a kind of biofeedback or neurofeedback, and there's certainly some very significant, commonalities between sort of a standard conventional approach to that and the work that I do. But there's also, in my personal opinion, a number of added dimensions and a kind of extra depth to the approach that I take that allows for, I think, a much greater edge, to occur. And so, in a nutshell, I mean, what I do is I study the characteristics, the definitive characteristics of states that occur in organisms. I try to identify and isolate what the constructive and productive ones are, and then I attempt to render that into an output form, whether it's sonic or acoustic or otherwise, so that when it's exposed, to an organism, that's, a very tangible kind of benefit emerges.
Interesting. Wow. So, and it's also, your work is also based on the premise that matter is affected by sound, right?
Sure. I mean, I mean, matter. Matter is certainly a kind of condensed, vibration or set of vibrations. Um, you could say that most, well, you could say that matter is, in a certain kind of phase state, or it's at a certain, I suppose, velocity of energy. So, what might appear to be matter to us, would probably be ethereal, to an observer that was at a different phase state, which
Hmm.
is probably why there's so many. I'm guessing it's probably why there's so many, historic accounts of, people claiming that they see things, peculiar paranormal things going through walls and stuff. It's what's probably actually going on. If there is any credence to any account of a person witnessing, what appears to be, an object going through another solid object, then on a purely, scientific, quantifiable level, that would simply mean that you've got things that are at a different phase state or at a different energy density.
Like,
So they,
would you, is that like a dimension, like a phase state?
uh, yeah, I mean, it's funny because there's a lot of different definitions of dimension floating about, even in the different
Scientific.
academic circles. But I mean, loosely, yeah, you could say something
I
like
was
that.
gonna
Sure.
say I was at use loosely the
Yeah, sure,
word.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, interesting. Um, so I mean, this is a very interesting this is very interesting work that you're doing, and it's really, really inspiring to see somebody trying to use this technology for good because, people discover. So I'm not saying everybody's like this, but it seems like a lot of people have discovered a lot of things that could really help us as a human race, but they're choosing or they have chose to use it to benefit themselves or to use it for you know for for malicious purposes, I should say maybe. And I was just wondering, um, can this technology be used for evil?
Well, um, frequency-based technology. Uh, there's different kinds of frequency-based technology, and they're employed, mostly for mundane purposes, just for the, for practical sort of day-to-day utilitarian purposes, and certainly within the spectral range of that, I'm sure that it would be easy to associate different kinds of intentions with those uses, Uh, but if we're going to talk about the exploration and then the use of frequency technology in behavioral sciences or similar, yeah, sure, it's accurate to say that generically frequency technology can be used in a way that we would describe as being not well intended. But
Mm.
if I were to answer specifically in relation to my technology, uh, my response to that would be that I don't believe so. And the reason that I don't believe so is that when I first started off on this, you know, area of research and development, one of the things that mattered a great deal to me, was to actually not pursue something that would ever lend itself to that. And so I also wanted to attempt to understand what I was doing enough and to engineer it in a way where it would be impossible to have it rendered that way. And so, to the best of my understanding, um, you know, my understanding currently of the technology that I've developed is that would not be feasible, and there's a number of technical reasons for that. But if I were to use, say, like a very simplistic metaphor, um, imagine that you had a snowflake, and imagine that the snowflake was very large. Say that its surface area was, a few feet. Maybe it was like a couple of feet across, width and height. And
Mm-hmm.
if you, let's say that you wanted to turn that snowflake into something that was unpleasant to look at, and you wanted to, say, rearrange the fine, kind of filigreed, structural, parts of it. Well, to do so would break the snowflake and would render it, pretty much, unusable. And so, I would like to say, and I believe that it would be, in its current state. I can't see how it could be engineered that way. It could be engineered maybe to be, on a very low level. It could be engineered to be, maybe a little bit annoying. If it, sure,
Yeah.
yeah, if it was something that wasn't rendered correctly, or it had some, some crude changes made to it, or it had, part of its essential parts removed. But then there wouldn't be much difference between that and any kind of noise generator that would be, you could, so yeah, I don't personally see how it could be, like, weaponized, or used in any kind of adverse way. I mean, certainly
But
not to normal human beings.
hmm. Have you had any effect with animals, or has people used the technology on animals?
Yeah, we've actually had a number of accounts, really diverse ones, and some strange ones, and a lot of those have been archived, and they're in our online. We have a few online groups, and so we've retained, reports that get issued by members and users. Probably the most common ones, I would say, are, the everyday pet that people have, like the cat, the dog, the bird. Um, there's also some really strange ones that have happened with wild animals. I can actually read one here to you. It's,
Yeah, yeah. I'm
yeah,
I'm very interested in hearing about that.
I
Yeah.
when I first heard this one, I I was a little bit startled, because I really hadn't expected anything like this, and especially when we first started off, a lot of this was very experimental, and so we
Yeah.
were all kind of learning together. Um,
Yeah.
but this was one of our senior members issued this report, and I'll just read this. The subject of the email report was, and she's American. I think she's from the southeast, or she's from Texas. And
Yeah.
so she says, the frequencies are calling the wild birds in my yard! Exclamation. And her email reads, "Hi, you all. I've been a member for a while, but haven't had the chance yet to share what's been going on with me down in Texas. I've been playing the frequencies while I've been working on my dissertation on sound healing, toning, vibrating oneself to optimum health." I think she was in school, and she was doing a paper, and that was the topic of it.
Hmm.
Um, I've been running a loop. She had a couple of tracks, and that we have different titles to the tracks that are quite popular, and I guess they're well loved by the membership. So these are the names of the tracks. She says, "I've been running a loop with Good Luck Evoker, Health Shield, Attract Good Things, Ibogaine, DNA Sweet Spin, Uncanny Timing, and Intuition and Viral Inhibitor." So she's got all these tracks, and she's looping them. And she says, "In my opinion, these frequencies definitely help me to stay healthy, centered, and optimistic, as well as inspired while completing my dissertation." And then she says in brackets, "Doc stars and your frequencies, as well as the group, are mentioned in it." And then she says, "So back to the subject matter. While playing the frequencies today in my office, with screen door and windows open to my yard, the wild birds started surrounding my house, and were trying as hard as they could to get inside to the sounds, repeatedly attacking my screen door, and even entering my garage, searching out the source of the sound. DNA Sweet Spin and Ibogaine seemed to attract them the most.